Hi everyone, Susel Misch with Loan Depot, and on this new video, this one is specifically directed to my realtors out there trying to get more business, trying to get more buyers. So this is for you. Make sure that you take notes. You can save it. I can send it personally to you, but make sure that you pay close attention to everything I'm going to cover in this video. So this is how to pre-screen a potential buyer. Nowadays, the business is moving really fast, and we have a lot of people out there. They're just hearing in the news how the interest rates are so low. They're hearing from their friends and family on social media how everyone's buying a house and everybody wants to buy. So I want to make sure that when you get that call, you're prioritizing and you know what questions to ask to know if you have a client or not. Now, me personally, I take every single client that everyone that calls me, I give them the attention and I talk to them and I give them their application. But I want to make sure that if it's someone that is not ready to buy right now or someone that simply doesn't qualify, I don't want to make that a follow-up or a task. I want to make sure that I set them up I'll follow up with you in 6 months or a year when you're ready. So this is just for you guys to know how to handle every client differently. So I personally do not recommend showing houses to a potential buyer without having a pre-approval in your hands from your trusted lender, like myself. Now, I will quickly give you the difference between a prequal and a pre-approval letter. So a prequel is pretty much when us lenders, we talk to a client and we just ask them basic questions. We ask them about credit, income, assets, and we kind of prequel them, and it's mostly verbal and it's without checking credit, it's without checking all of the items that we need for a pre-approval. So prequel is mostly just verbally asking the questions and we say, yeah, you are pre-qualified. Now, to get them pre-approved and to get a pre-approval letter, a good loan officer will run credit, get their income documents, verify their employment, verify their income for 2 years. We will verify their assets, and we will run our automated underwriting system, which is, we call it AUS. We'll run the whole scenario while everything's already been verified, and then we can say you are pre-approved, and that's a document that you give out when you're making offers on houses. And then once you're under contract, then you get a full approval. So just make sure that your buyer has been fully pre-approved, as in credit checked, income and assets verified. That way you know that it is an actual real buyer and not just a client. Otherwise, you could be potentially wasting your time and effort with a client that might not be ready to buy. So always make sure that you have your trusted lender or your preferred lender talk to that buyer before you actually go out there and start showing houses, so that you don't waste your time. Now, there's a difference if you have someone that says, or someone that you personally know, someone that says, I'm putting 20% down or have cash, someone that it gives you that reassurance that it is an actual deal. And I still always recommend that you have them talk to a lender. Now, you will also have buyers that say, well, I already have my own lender. Well, if you don't know that lender, you don't have that rapport with that lender, you cannot manage or control the file, because, for example, as a lender, I have an amazing relationship with my realtors. I have them on, my first phone call of the day is with all my realtors, giving them updates on their files. They know they can call me directly, they can call my boss. We have that relationship, so they trust them when I'm handling their client. They don't have to worry about what's going on with the file. They can go out there and chase more business. So if you have a buyer that already has their own lender, make sure that you call that lender and you make sure that they've already done everything to make sure that this is an actual buyer, and you kind of build that rapport with that lender. Or simply just say, hey, I would feel more comfortable if you go with my lender, someone that I know, and someone that I know that is going to get this done in the allotted time for the file. So it is very important that you pre-screen your buyer before you refer them to your lender. Now, why? Because it determines the level of attention and follow-up that you need for this buyer. That way, if you get, if you need to get your lender on the phone right away. Like if you have a client, you have them in front of you or they're on the phone, and if they meet all of this criteria, you can say, you know what, let me call my lender right now, let me get you let me get you pre-approved right now, so you don't lose it. You don't give them a chance to go and talk to another realtor, or talk to friends and family that have had a bad experience, which happens all the time. They get discouraged because they hear somebody else's story. If you have someone that meets all this criteria, get your lender on the phone. I've had realtors call me and say, hey, I have this client right here in my office right now. I need you to do the loan application. And I stop what I'm doing and I get on my computer and I do the loan application. Why? Because you want to get that client going. So, again, it's always good to have a lender that gives you that level of attention when you have a client that is gonna qualify. So you may, so here are the questions. Get ready to write them. First thing that you want to ask, obviously you can't run credit, but you want to ask them, how's your credit? You're going to have someone that says, oh, I have perfect credit. I'm in the 700, 800. And more than likely they do, or at least they have a credit that is high enough to qualify. Now, I have encountered people that say, oh, I have perfect credit, never been late. And then I run their credit and they co-sign for a car for their child and they haven't been making payments. So now they have late payments and their credit score went down. It happens, but typically when someone is confident enough to say, I have good credit or my credit is perfect, more than likely they do. Or it may say, I'm not sure, or it's not that great. Someone that is not on top of their credit and their finances, that's someone that you really want to have a lender take a look at their credit, make sure that is someone that is going to qualify. So someone that doesn't know how their credit, or they say, well, it's not that great, I've had collections, or I'm working with a credit repair company, that person right off the bat, that is going to need some time to work on. So inform them that, and I'm reading my script, inform them that they're qualified based on debt to income ratio, meaning if they have a lot of credit liabilities or credit debt, it could affect them negatively on how much they qualify. It doesn't mean that they don't qualify. It just determines how much they qualify for. And it includes car payments, credit cards, student loans, even if they're not paying the student loans, even if the student loans are on forbearance or deferred, they still, in some cases, it depends on the loan program that they're doing, we still have to show a monthly payment for the student loan. Any mortgages, child support, responsibility, alimony, any tax debt, like if they owe money to the IRS and they're in a payment plan, all of that has to be disclosed and all of that is going to count against their liabilities. Again, even if you have a car payment that you just co-sign, but you're not the number one on the loan, it's still on your credit. You're still responsible for that monthly payment. And the only way to not count that against your liabilities is if you have the co-owner who's making the payments show 12 months of bank statements showing that they're the ones making the payment. Again, it all depends on the loan program. Have your lender make that decision or make that requirement for them. Inform them that if they have student loans, again, I already touched on that, even if it's deferred or it's in forbearance, we still, depending on the loan program, we still may have to put a monthly payment for that loan, for that student loan amount. Second thing that you want to ask them is if they're ready to buy right now, or what's their urgency. If you have someone that says, oh, my lease expires at the end of the month, and today is the 4th or whatever, you're not going to close on time unless they have cash, or unless we really get to work right now. So make sure that when they need to move out. Like you have someone says, well, my lease doesn't expire until May, so you have time, and maybe you can talk about maybe putting them in new construction, something that is going to take a while to build, or just make sure that the time frame that you have with a client. That way how quickly, how soon, how fast you have to get everything done with this client. Ask them if they're currently employed. Now, this is really important. I had a call the other day with a client that he said, oh, I work, but it's cash is under the table. Well, can't use it. Cash, if the income is not documented with a W-2, with tax returns, with a paycheck, if it's not on paper documented, we cannot use it. I don't care how much cash you make. It has to be documented. So ask them if they're employed. And if the person's furloughed or on receiving unemployment, we cannot use that. They have to be currently working right now. Okay. Then we'll talk more about, if you have someone that was furloughed because of COVID or receiving unemployment, but they're back to work now, make sure that they talk to the lender, because there's new guidelines around people having been out of work for a while that could affect them, the amount of income that we can use for them. So, ask them If they're employed, ask them if they're W-2 or 1099 or self-employed. This is really important because if you have someone that is 1099 or self-employed, they have to be able to show you 2 years of tax returns, at least 2 years of tax returns. So make sure, even though some people may be self-employed, but if they're not reporting money in their taxes, you cannot use that income. Like I said, it has to be documented. So, and always make sure that they understand that we look at their net income, their bottom line. They might say, oh, I made $150,000 last year. And then you ask them, make sure that they understand that if that's the gross amount, we go by their bottom line, their net after all their deductions, after all their expenses. Because I've seen it time and time that they make $100,000 gross, but after they take all of their deductions and all of their expenses, their net income is $30,000 a year, and that's what we have to use. So make sure that they understand that when you're asking them, and make sure that they're able to produce 2 years of tax returns, at least 2 years of tax returns. Ask them if they have any other sources of income, such as Social Security or disability income, VA income, child support, alimony, any type of income that is not just employment. You can always ask them, because we can use them if we have the right documentation. So that's another thing that you want to ask them. Make sure that ask them if they're going to be having a co-borrower, or if they don't qualify by themselves, if they can get a co-borrower to help them buy. And even if the co-borrower already owns a house, make sure that you don't discourage them. Tell them, hey, ask the lender. The lender will tell you if we can use that co-borrower. But the same, if they're going to use a co-borrower, you're going to have to ask the same questions as you did the main borrower. If they have job, if they have good credit, and all that stuff. And last but not least, ask them how they're planning to pay for their down payment and closing costs. There's always closing costs. We can always negotiate for the seller to pay the closing costs. And some loan programs require a down payment. Some don't require. Some require less. Some require more. Always ask them how they're planning on paying for that. We have down payment assistance program that we can use. Again, we can ask the seller to give some contribution towards closing costs. They can use a gift from a family member, employer, and when they call your lender, the lender should be able to tell them all the sources of gift that they can use. They can use money that they have in the 401k. So they obviously savings, checking account, cash, money under the mattress is not good. You cannot source cash. Everything has to be, whatever money that they use for this transaction we have to be able to document and source it. So make sure that they understand. When you ask them, how are you planning to pay for all the money that's involved? If they say, oh, I have cash, make sure that they understand that we cannot use cash. So it has to be seasoned for 2 months, it has to be sourced, and it has to be documented. So I really hope that all of this information was very helpful. I took my time, and if there's anything else that you guys need or you want to ask me, you can call me, you can message me, you can email me, and I'm going to put all of the information on this video. But I really hope that you can use this and take advantage of all this information. That way you're talking to clients that really are going to be a client and not just someone calling you. Again, it's my pleasure to always help. Feel free to call me or text me or email me, and you have a fantastic day.